All right. Well, I just want to show here a quick simulation that we've created. The simulation, the goal of it is to kind of show how rapid decision cycles in funding can help make your company and your products more profitable, right? So the simulation doesn't simulate a lot of things that happen inside of real life. It isolates certain changes in order to focus on the lesson. But what we have here is we have two different products, right? And we're going to assume for a moment that they both have a valid business case. They both appear to be likely to have a high ROI. And so we're going to get them both funded. And what happens in a lot of companies is you present this kind of information to some sort of steering committee. They decide, yes, I want to fund this project. And then they fund it, right? Here's your money for your team. Here's your money for your team. Go make the product. So to simulate that, the first thing that we have is each product has a team associated with it, and we're going to make a single funding decision early on and let that play out, right? So this first button here, and this is on CodePen. I'll put a link down in the description for going to it and using it yourself. Right, so I'm going to click on Calculate Full Project, and it's just going to go month to month to month over the 8 months that were funded, and we're going to continue with this project, right? So what's happening here? Right now, I admit the feature names are a little bland, right? But we have these features, and month over month, more and more of them get done. We're assuming that we're releasing them and getting value every single month, right? So this isn't waterfall versus agile necessarily. This is simply long decision cycles on budgeting versus short decision cycles on budgeting. So also, this doesn't fluctuate. This doesn't handle changes in team behavior, right? So if I run this again, you'll see here total accumulated value at the end of 8 months, 0.41 million. Down here, it's 0.57 million. If I reset the simulation and I run it again, I'm going to get the same answers. Right, so removed a lot of variables. We're down to one thing that we want to look at. So what do we want to see in the simulation? Well, first off, I want to look at the work being done here. I want to look at my value creation chart, right? So this is these business value points, right? So this is a kind of an abstracted measurement of business value that I'm creating with each of these features. And I see two very different charts here, right? So what's going on? I'm going to click here to show more information. And this is my feature backlog, right? So early features, I have some small features with fairly high value, right? So this is low cost, high value kind of features. But that kind of turns over at a certain point, right? Somewhere here, this is a lot of work for only 600 points as compared to these smalls and mediums that are much higher. So somewhere around here is where this curve just kind of tables out, right? It rolls off over here and becomes kind of flat. What about this one down here? So what I see down here is I also have some very high value ones, but it takes a lot to get them. Some of them are really, really big for those values, right? So how do I want to approach this? We're going to reset the simulation again. And the simulation lets me do another thing. It lets me calculate it month to month. Okay, so I can choose. I have two teams. Remember, I have two teams funded, but I can choose what products they're going to focus on. Right. So this is the variable in the simulation. And I'm sorry. I'm going to do this one more time because I want to reference it later on. What's happening up here is my total accumulated value, and then I project that out a year where I'm not adding new features into it. I'm simply just continuing to get value on the work that I've done. And 3.14 million is my amount. It's a fairly arbitrary number. Just these business value points are set to be worth a certain amount of money when they translate into real value of customers subscribing or buying my product or whatever it is. So, like I said, I'm going to reset the simulation, and here's what I'm going to try to do. Right, we talk in both Lean and Agile talks about kind of small batch sizes and focusing on getting something done and then moving on to another thing instead of doing a lot concurrently. There are a couple different reasons for that, but one of them is this. I get my high value for my lowest effort right here in product one, early in product one. So I'm going to put my work into there. I'm going to calculate the first month, right? So what's happened here? I got a certain amount of value. I've got those first two features done. Now, if we look, I really want that third feature as well, and the next feature isn't bad, right? So I can have some decisions to make here. Maybe let's keep them both on that project for right now. I could maybe transfer one off and just focus on those three, but for right now, let's keep them both there. I'm going to calculate February. So now I have all four of those features done, and they started looking at feature 11. The simulation doesn't let me change, mid-month. So I've got the main things that I want. Remember, this is where we table off. So I'm actually going to refocus my teams back on product 2 now, right? So we've gotten the key value items out of product 1. I'm going to go back to product 2, let my customers kind of enjoy that for the moment, and then we calculate the next month, right? Now, where are we at? We're now 5 months in. I've got some of my big features that had that big value, right? This is the big one, feature 1, and I got that 2 months in. And we'll calculate our way. Let's see what's going on here. 16. Now, one of the things I want to be careful of, and sadly, I've seen this happen on actual projects, right? If I look here, I've got up to feature 19, and I think, with this simulation, see, I'm all done, right? But I still have funding, so what do I do? Well, if I was just going to let this play out, well, okay, fine, it just keeps going, and it continues on into August, and they'll clean up some documentation or do work on something that they weren't able to finish before. A number of other things that often happen when people have more funding and time that they're supposed to take when they don't necessarily need it to do the work necessary. So what I want to do instead, I don't want that to happen. I don't want to waste that time. So I'm going to go back and focus on some of these nice to have features in product 1 that we didn't get around to the first time. But maybe there are a couple of customers out there that this would help with. Obviously, in real life, there are other things that I might do with this time. I might have a third product that I start moving on to. But let's calculate the final month, and I'm up to 3.37 million, right? So why does this matter? Well, it matters because I just added $0.23 million in these two projects by doing nothing but making decisions more frequently. That's all I've done is I've put the same amount of work in, I've put the same amount of time in. Nothing is variable, nothing has changed. The only thing that changes is I make decisions more frequently. I've done this a couple of different ways. You can get some different things. One of the things someone you may have noticed as we look is, value accrues over time, and getting value early, especially big value, is potentially very valuable. Very cost effective. So let's say I reset this, and I'm going to make a small adjustment here. We're actually going to focus on this one first. So I calculate out this. That feature 1 is the one I really want. And I'm going to make a guess that we both started on there, but this team's going to shift over now. I think that should get me feature 1, right? I'd probably ask the team if it was a real team, not a simulation. But let's see how that goes for us. Great. That actually perfectly wrapped up. I didn't move on to feature whatever the next feature is on that backlog. And now we're going to move over, and we're going to focus over here. Calculate the next month. Cool. So now we've got in the top 3 features, and now let's move back. So we're kind of jumping around a bit. This doesn't take into account context switching. Certainly being focused for a month at a time limits the amount of penalty for context switching, but it's still there. It's one thing this doesn't focus on, right? Great. I've got the features that I wanted. We're moving back to product 2, focusing on those. Let's calculate a couple months. Now, I don't know what's going to happen over here. We're still all done with... So we probably had some dead time at the end of July on that other project, right? And so we're going to move back here. Oh, now up to 3.42 million. All right, so I've added, what does that work out to? $280,000 created by nothing but making decisions more frequently based on how we saw things play out. You know, we looked at the backlog, decided where we wanted to focus our time and attention so that we realized larger amounts of value earlier, and we made funding decisions on what to focus on every single month instead of in one 8-month block, right? So you're welcome to go to this. Like I said, the link will be down in the description. You can play with it yourselves. I think I went through one of these that gave me 3.45 million, but I haven't been able to recreate it. I don't remember what combination of things I chose to get that. But you can look at it, right? The couple take-home messages. One, I want to be looking at my backlog. This is important. When I just do calculate full project, the reason that the number is lower is because I have a kitchen sink problem. I'm grouping all these small value features in with the big value features, and because the ROI that I see averaged out across them is still high, I assume everything in it must be good, and that's not necessarily true, right? So obviously there are ways of calculating value other than dollars. Maybe this guy down here is actually super important because there's a customer segment that's really loyal to us, and it doesn't necessarily bring us a whole lot of money, but it keeps them happy, solves one of their needs. And so maybe that would go up, right? Again, limitation of this simulation, I can't change the backlog. Maybe that's something we'll change later, right? But yeah, we want to look at the backlog. We want to track these things. When does my value table out, right? The simulation lets me go back in time and relive the same thing, which obviously we can't do in real life, right? So let's real quick take a look at it. I'm going to reset it, and we're going to go with this. I'm going to hit calculate, right? And I'm going to progress through. Let's see when this... Oh, it's starting to table off. Well, that's right. Now maybe I stick with it for another month. I say, well, it's starting to table off, but maybe it'll pick up again, right? These tabled off and then picked up and got huge value. Certainly limitation of using charts to make decisions, right? That what should really be happening when these table off is you go ask the team what's going on and have a good conversation about if you should keep going, right? Because if I look at my backlog here, I can see that the trend of tabling off is only going to continue. But let's say I was just looking at the charts and I calculate another month out. No, that's definitely tabled off, right? Time to switch my attention. And I'll just calculate these out. I don't think that's going to fill up. No. Ooh, I have one more feature. Is it worth it? What's my feature? Oh yeah. That's a small feature for a lot. Let's get that, right? 3.36. Awesome. So again, huge jump, right? So maybe that was a slightly more realistic view of if I was actually watching the data and trying to react to the data without going back and knowing how that data was going to play out. Maybe that's how it would how it really play out. But yeah, that's $220,000. If anyone thinks that's not important, let me know. I'll give you my PayPal account, and you just send me $220,000, and we'll call it even. All right. I hope you enjoyed. If this is of interest to you, like I said, go take a look at the simulation. Try it out yourself. Let me know if you have any questions. If if there's anything that you'd like to see in there. Obviously, it could be made a lot more sophisticated, but the more moving parts you put in, the harder it is to isolate certain things and focus on that lesson. Right, but there may be some improvements that we can make in the future to make this more interesting. Thanks again. Bye.